Did you know that international students contributed a staggering 37.3 billion Canadian dollars to Canada's economy in 2022? That's right. And it's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the impact of international students on Canadian universities. Buckle up as we dive into this fascinating world of global education and its far-reaching effects. Let's start with the money talk. International students are like financial superheroes for Canadian universities. They pay significantly higher tuition fees than their domestic counterparts. We're talking an average of 32,000 Canadian dollars for undergraduates. That's a pretty penny compared to what Canadian students shell out. But why does this matter? Well, it's simple. Many Canadian universities have come to rely on this income to keep their doors open and lights on. With public funding on the decline, these institutions are turning to international students to fill the gap. It's like having a trusty piggy bank that keeps growing year after year. Now, you might be wondering, is this sustainable? It's a fair question. The COVID-19 pandemic really put this reliance to the test. When international student enrollment took a hit, some universities found themselves in a bit of a pickle. It's a stark reminder that putting all your eggs in one basket can be risky business. But let's not forget the bigger picture. International students aren't just walking wallets. They bring so much more to the table. These bright minds from around the globe are shaking things up in Canadian classrooms and beyond. Picture this: a diverse group of students from different corners of the world, all bringing their unique perspectives to the table. It's like a melting pot of ideas, cultures, and innovations. This diversity is gold dust for universities aiming to climb those coveted global rankings. Speaking of rankings, did you know that many international students are actively involved in research? They're not just hitting the books. They're contributing to Canada's massive $17 billion annual university-driven research and development efforts. Talk about brain power! Now, let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. In 2023, Canadian universities were bustling with over 1.5 million students. And guess what? A significant chunk of these were international students. We're talking about nearly 30% in some institutions. That's almost 1 in 3 students. This influx of international students couldn't have come at a better time. While the number of Canadian-born students has been holding steady, or even dipping in some cases, international students have stepped in to fill the gap. It's like they're the secret ingredient keeping the educational pot simmering. But it's not all smooth sailing. This heavy reliance on international students has raised some eyebrows. Critics argue that it's creating a two-tiered system, where international students are seen more as cash cows than valued members of the academic community. It's a delicate balance, and universities are constantly trying to find the sweet spot. Let's break it down with some real-world examples. Imagine you're a university administrator. On one hand, you have these brilliant international students who are eager to learn and contribute to your institution. They're paying top dollar for their education, which helps keep your programs running and facilities up to date. On the other hand, you have domestic students who might feel overshadowed or worry about increased competition for resources. It's like trying to keep two different groups happy at a dinner party. Challenging, but not impossible. And let's not forget about the students themselves. For many international students, studying in Canada is a dream come true. They get to experience a world-class education system, immerse themselves in a new culture, and potentially set themselves up for a bright future in Canada. But it's not all maple syrup and hockey games. These students often face unique challenges. They're navigating a new educational system, dealing with homesickness, and often working within tight budgetary constraints. It's like being dropped into the deep end of a pool and expected to swim like an Olympic champion. Now, you might be thinking, this all sounds great for the universities, but what's in it for Canada as a whole? Great question. The benefits extend far beyond campus boundaries. International students inject billions into the Canadian economy through tuition, living expenses, and tourism when their families visit. But it doesn't stop there. Many of these students go on to become valuable contributors to Canadian society. They bring fresh perspectives to the workforce, start innovative businesses, and help bridge cultural gaps in an increasingly globalized world. It's like planting seeds for future economic and cultural growth. However, this reliance on international students also raises some important questions. Is it fair to charge them significantly more than domestic students? How can universities ensure they're providing adequate support for these students? And what happens if global events or policy changes suddenly reduce the flow of international students? These are complex issues without easy answers. But one thing's for sure, the landscape of Canadian higher education is changing, and international students are at the heart of this transformation. As we wrap up our whirlwind tour of international students in Canadian universities, it's clear that their impact is far-reaching and multifaceted. They're not just students, they're cultural ambassadors, economic contributors, and potential future leaders. The challenge moving forward will be to strike a balance, harnessing the benefits of international education while ensuring fairness and sustainability for all students. It's a tall order, but if any country can do it, it's Canada. After all, diversity and inclusion are part of the Canadian DNA. So, the next time you see international students on a Canadian campus, remember, they're not just there to study. They're shaping the future of Canadian education, one lecture, one research project, and one cultural exchange at a time. And that's something worth celebrating, eh?